Perek Beis Mishna Gimel. Now, if you remember in Mishna Aleph in this Perek, we spoke about how wooden vessels and bone vessels, they can't become tamei unless they have a cavity, unless they have a receptacle. If they're flat, they're automatically tahor. Our Mishnah says the same exact thing by earthenware, except the earthenware vessels gets its own Mishnah. Because earthenware vessels are not only tahor when they're flat, midaraisa, but even midarabanan. They're completely tahor, even midarabanan, and therefore they get their own Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, hatahirin shebeklei cheres. The tahor vessels that are earthenware, because they don't have a cavity. Tavla, a tray, she'ein lo lizbeis, that has no rim. So look at this tray over here, an earthenware tray without any rim. Therefore it has no receptacle, it has no toich. The pasuk says that earthenware vessels need a toch, an inside. And this has no inside because it's flat. So it's completely tahor, even midaraisa and midarabanan. Umachta prutza, and a coal pan which is open. Look at this coal pan, they would use it to shovel out the coals, and it has no walls, and therefore there is no receptacle, and therefore it's tahor. I'm not sure why we need to give two separate examples to show this the same exact principle. The abuv, and a pan, shel kalon, of the toasters. Look at this earthenware pan which they would use to toast legumes and beans, and it had holes in them so that the fire could get through, and the fire will be very intense to toast these beans. And generally speaking, when you have a hole in a vessel, the hole ruins it and makes it tahor. But since these holes had functions to them and it was made purposely for that, it's not because of the holes that the vessel is tahor. Rather, it's only because that there's no receptacle, there's no inside. That's why this vessel is tahor. The Mishnah goes on and says, v'silonos, and pipes, afal pi kfufin, even though there's bent, look at this bent pipe. Afal pi makablim, even though they can accept things. Look at this pipe where it eroded a little in the middle, and it can accept little pebbles here. Nevertheless, the Mishnah rules that these pipes are tahor. They're not susceptible to tuma at all. Even though they can technically accept things, they can accept things in the bend or in the erosion part. Nevertheless, since these pipes are not made to accept items, they're just made to transport water from one place to another, and therefore they're tahor, which brings out an important principle in terms of having a toich, a receptacle, is that it's only deemed a receptacle if it's made to hold things, not if it's made to just transfer items from place to place. The Mishnah goes on and says a similar principle, the kavkov, and a bread cover. Look at this kavkov, this cover for a bread basket. So the kavkov and a bread cover, she'aso, that was built, l'sal hapas, to cover the sal, to cover the basket of bread. And since this kavkov was made to cover, it wasn't made to hold things, therefore it's tahor. It's not considered having an inside, because the inside wasn't made to be flipped and used as a bowl, it was made to cover. So it's not susceptible to tumah. Utefi, and a jug, shehiskinu la'anovim, that you fixed to cover your grapes. So you have a tfi here, which originally was susceptible to tumah, but then you cracked it off to use the bottom part to flip it over your grape basket, and since you've done an action to recreate and you redesignated it as a cover, so now it loses its receptacle properties, and now it's considered just a cover, and as we said, covers aren't susceptible to tumah. V'chaviz shel shayot, the Mishnah goes on, and barrels of floaters, they would use barrels to float in water, and obviously the barrel had to be covered on all of its sides so no water gets in, so it doesn't sink, and therefore it's not made to hold water, it's just made to float, and therefore it's tahor. V'chaviz, and a barrel, but not a literal barrel, but a barrel-shaped handle, defuna, that was hidden, bishulei hamachatz, at the bottom of the machatz, of the big jug. So here we have the machatz, the big water jug, and we have a handle here that sort of looks like a receptacle, but it wasn't made to hold items, it was just made to put your hand in to hold it, and therefore it's not susceptible to tumah. This handle doesn't have its own tumah susceptibility. Now the Mishnah goes on and says, v'hamita, and a bed, v'hakisei, and a chair, v'hasafsel, and a bench, v'hashulchan, and a table. All of these items weren't made to hold things, they have no receptacles, and they're completely tahor. Now, even though we already listed items that are flat and therefore tahor, over here we're repeating it again, because these items were made to bear people's weight, like a chair, a table, and a bed. They're made to bear people's weight. And generally, you would have thought that they can be mekabel tumas midris, which is a special type of tumah that a zavonida yoledis, these types of people emit when they lean on items meant to lean on, like a bed or a chair. So you might think that even though they're flat, they could still be mekabel tumah, and therefore the Mishnah goes out of its way to teach you that they cannot become tameh. So if you look at this wooden chair, even though it's flat, if a zav and his friends sit on it, they can make it tameh. The Mishnah here tells us a chiddush that flat earthenware vessels, like this chair,
cannot become tamei even if a zav sits on it. Next, v'hasvina, and a boat. A boat, again, that's made out of earthenware cannot be makabel tuma. The Gemara derives this from a drasha that compares a boat to the sea, a pasuk that compares a boat to the sea, and the sea is not makabel tuma, so the boat's not makabel tuma. V'haminoira, and a candelabra shel cheres, again, that's made out of cheres. Hare elu tahor, and all these items are tahor. So if you look at this candelabra, here's the earthenware candelabra, and it's a base for the glass cup holding the oil and the wick and the fire. And since this base doesn't have any receptacle, it's just used as a base for the glass cup, therefore it's not makabel tuma. And the chiddush is that even though it's a base for a cup, but it itself is not a cup, and therefore it's not makabel tuma. Zeh haklal, this is the rule. So now generally when the Mishnah says zeh haklal, it's explaining the rule that the Mishnah already spoke about. This is an exception. This rule has nothing to do with the prior halachas of the Mishnah, and therefore we're going to have another session to explain it. So now it's your turn to read the Mishnah.